In the end, it wasn't his billions that changed his son's life, it was showing up. Believing and learning to love in ways money could never buy. Ethan Cole was the kind of man people read about in magazines. He was rich, powerful, and always busy. His company built smart technology used all over the world, and everyone called him a genius. But behind all the success, Ethan lived a very quiet and lonely life. His mansion was full of staff, but it never felt like a home. The one person who should have been closest to him, his 10-year-old son, Liam, was almost a stranger. Liam was born with cerebral palsy. He couldn't walk or speak easily, and his body didn't always do what he wanted it to. Since birth, nurses, doctors, and therapists had been around him every day. Ethan loved his son in his own way, but he didn't know how to show it. Whenever he looked at Liam, he felt helpless and guilty, like a failure who couldn't fix what money couldn't cure. So instead of trying, he buried himself in his work. Every morning, Ethan left home before Liam was even awake. He worked late into the night and came home long after his son was asleep. On weekends, he was on video calls or flying to another country. He told himself he was doing it for Liam's future, that the more he earned, the better care Liam would have. But deep down, Ethan knew he was hiding. It was easier to build companies than to face his own son's quiet eyes asking for love. When Liam was accepted into a new private school that specialized in inclusive education, Ethan barely paid attention. His assistant handled everything: the paperwork, the interviews, the fees. Ethan only signed documents and nodded. He didn't even remember the teacher's name. All he cared about was that the school had good reviews and advanced therapy programs a week before school started. Ethan's assistant, Clara, reminded him about the parent orientation. "You should really attend this one," she said carefully. "The teacher wants to meet every parent personally." It would mean a lot to Liam, too, Ethan sighed. His schedule was full, and he had an investor meeting that morning. But something in Clara's voice made him pause. She'd worked for him for years and rarely spoke so personally. So, with a half-hearted promise, he told her to move his meetings. That Friday, Ethan drove to the school in his black luxury car, feeling completely out of place. Parents were chatting in groups, holding coffee cups, while kids ran around laughing. He stood there in his designer suit, checking his phone every few seconds. The noise, the small talk, the chaos, it all felt foreign to him. Then he saw Liam being wheeled into the classroom by a cheerful woman with bright eyes and a gentle smile. She bent down to talk to him, laughing at something he said. The boy's face lit up. Ethan froze. He couldn't remember the last time he had seen Liam smile like that. The woman looked up and spotted him. She walked over, still smiling. "You must be Mr. Cole," she said warmly. "I'm Ms. Harper, Liam's teacher." Ethan shook her hand, his grip firm but distant. "Nice to meet you. I've heard good things about your school." "We've heard wonderful things about Liam," she said. "He's already made friends this morning." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "Friends? He doesn't usually talk much." Ms. Harper nodded. "He doesn't need to say much. Sometimes a smile is enough." Her calm tone and open smile caught him off guard. He wasn't used to people talking to him this easily, without trying to impress him or ask for something. She didn't seem interested in his money or fame. She just seemed kind. As the orientation went on, Ms. Harper spoke to the parents about inclusion and understanding. She explained how every child was unique, how progress wasn't just about grades, but about confidence, empathy, and small victories. Ethan listened silently, but her words touched something deep inside him. When it was time to meet the students, Liam waved at his father with a small, hesitant hand. Ethan waved back awkwardly, unsure what to say. Ms. Harper crouched beside Liam and said, "Your dad came to see you today. Isn't that great?" Liam nodded, his eyes shining with pride. For a brief moment, Ethan felt something warm and unfamiliar stir in his chest. But he quickly pushed it down. He was not good at emotions. Business was easier. When the session ended, Ms. Harper thanked him for coming. "Liam will do great here," she said. "He just needs people to believe in him." Ethan smiled politely and left, his mind full of mixed feelings. On the drive home, he tried to focus on work, but his thoughts kept returning to the classroom, the laughter, the energy, the way Ms. Harper had looked at his son like he was capable of anything that night. Ethan sat in his quiet study, staring at a photo of Liam on his desk. It was taken years ago, during therapy, when Liam was just a toddler. In the picture, Ethan was looking at his phone while a nurse held the baby. For the first time, he noticed how empty that image felt. He realized he didn't know his son's favorite color or what made him laugh. He didn't even know if Liam liked school so far. He felt like a stranger living in the same house as his own child. Later, when the house was silent, Ethan passed by Liam's room. The light was still on. Through the door, he saw his son sitting in bed, holding a stuffed animal. Watching a video Ms. Harper had sent to the class earlier that day, she was reading a story aloud, and Liam was smiling at the screen, small hand tapping along to the rhythm. Ethan stood there quietly, unseen, watching his son's joy. It was such a simple thing, but it made his chest tighten. For the first time in years, he felt jealous not of another businessman or rival company, but of a teacher who could reach his son when he couldn't. That night, as he lay awake, Ethan couldn't shake Ms. Harper's words, "He just needs people to believe in him." He thought about how many times he had avoided spending time with Liam, convincing himself that paying for the best care was enough. But maybe it wasn't. Maybe what Liam really needed couldn't be bought. The next morning, Ethan was unusually quiet at breakfast. Liam's nurse helped him eat while Ethan sat there, lost in thought. Before leaving for work, he bent down and touched Liam's shoulder lightly. "Have a good day at school, buddy," he said. Liam looked surprised but smiled shyly. It was a small exchange, but for Ethan, it felt like a beginning. As he drove away, Ethan didn't know that this tiny moment, this small effort to connect, would change everything. He had no idea that the same teacher he had barely noticed would soon become the person who would teach him not just how to be a father, but how to love, and somewhere deep inside, something that had been frozen for years started to melt. Weeks passed after Liam started at his new school, and something about him began to change. He was still quiet, still shy, but there was a light in his eyes that hadn't been there before. Every morning, Ms. Harper greeted him at the classroom door with the same warm smile. She treated him not like a patient, but like a normal kid who could do anything if given the time and encouragement. She didn't talk down to him, and she never pitied him. In her class, she used little tricks that made learning fun for everyone. When the students painted, she made sure Liam's canvas was set up so he could reach it easily. When they played games, she always found a way for him to participate. If the children were running a relay, Liam became the one to cheer the loudest and wave the flag. He wasn't sitting on the side anymore. He was part of the team. At first, Ethan didn't notice. He was too busy in meetings and calls. He only knew that the daily reports from school started sounding more positive. Liam was more responsive, more confident, and more social. Those were just words on paper to Ethan. He thought maybe it was the new therapy. Or maybe Liam was just getting older. One evening, Ms. Harper sent a short video message to all the parents. In it, the children were showing their progress folders. Ethan opened it on his phone, half paying attention while typing an email. But then he saw Liam in the video, smiling shyly, trying to say his name aloud. His small hand was gripping a marker as he wrote the letters crooked. Shaky, but clear enough to read, L-I-M. Ethan froze. It was the first time he had ever seen his son write anything. His throat tightened as he replayed the clip again and again. There was Ms. Harper behind him, clapping, saying softly, "You did it, Liam. I knew you could." The next day, when Ms. Harper sent a note inviting parents to attend a skills day, Ethan decided to go. He told himself it was just to show support. But the truth was he wanted to see that moment in person. He wanted to understand what was happening in that classroom that he couldn't create at home when he arrived. He felt out of place again, surrounded by laughing parents in casual clothes, while he stood in his perfect gray suit. He took a seat in the back of the room, his phone in his hand as usual. The classroom was colorful and alive. Kids' artwork covered the walls. Music played softly in the background. Ms. Harper stood at the front, guiding the children gently, her voice calm and kind. Then she called Liam to the front. "Would you like to show your dad what we've been practicing?" she asked. Liam nodded nervously. His small fingers gripped the marker, and he began writing on the whiteboard again. It took time. His arm trembled. A few kids clapped to encourage him. Miss Harper knelt beside him, whispering, "You've got this. One letter at a time." Ethan held his breath as Liam finished the last letter. He turned around, his face bright with pride. The board read Liam Agenshiki, but perfect in its own way. The whole class cheered, and Miss Harper hugged him gently. Ethan's chest tightened. For the first time, he felt tears press against his eyes. He clapped too, though quietly, unsure what to do with the emotions swirling inside him. After class, Miss Harper approached him while Liam played with his classmates. "He's been working so hard," she said softly. "You should be proud," Ethan nodded, still moved. "I am. I didn't realize he could do this." She smiled kindly. He always could. He just needed someone to believe he could. Her words stayed with him long after he left the school. Over the next few weeks, Ethan found himself visiting the classroom more often. Sometimes he stood quietly at the back, pretending he was there for a quick check-in. Other times, Miss Harper would invite him to join small activities. Once, she asked him to help Liam paint. He hesitated. At first, he hadn't held a paintbrush since college, but when he saw how happy it made his son, he stayed. They painted a messy, colorful picture together, and Liam laughed when Ethan accidentally got paint on his sleeve. That laugh, so pure and full of joy, echoed in Ethan's head the entire day. He began to notice more about Ms. Harper, too. She had a way of making every child feel special. When a student struggled, she never raised her voice. She would kneel down, look them in the eye, and say, "Let's figure this out together." Her patience seemed endless. She didn't care about fancy materials or technology. She used simple things, words, encouragement, a hand on the shoulder, and somehow, they worked miracles. Ethan had built an empire by solving problems with money, but here was a woman changing lives with nothing but kindness. It fascinated him. One afternoon, after class, Miss Harper stopped him again. "Can I tell you something honestly?" she said. Ethan nodded. "Liam is making wonderful progress, but he needs more than teachers and therapists. He needs you." Ethan looked away, caught off guard. "I'm doing my best. I provide for him." "I know you do," she said gently. "But children like Liam, they notice when someone's really there for them. He needs to see that you're proud, that you care, that you enjoy spending time with him." Her words hit like a quiet truth he had been avoiding. He wanted to argue, to explain that he was busy, that his work was important. But deep down, he knew she was right. That night, he sat in his car outside the school for a long time before driving home. He thought about how easily Ms. Harper connected with Liam, how she could bring out parts of him that even Ethan hadn't seen. And he wondered what kind of father he had really been. Later that evening, when he got home, Liam was in the living room watching a cartoon. Ethan put down his briefcase and sat beside him. The nurse looked surprised, but said nothing. For a while, they just watched in silence. Then Liam turned to him and handed him a crayon. It was such a simple gesture. But Ethan felt something shift. He took the crayon and started drawing with him on a blank paper. Liam laughed when Ethan's drawing looked silly. For the first time, Ethan didn't feel awkward. He just felt happy. Before going to bed, Ethan received a short message from Ms. Harper. It said, "Liam told me his dad drew with him tonight. He was so excited. Keep going. He's watching you more than you know." Ethan stared at the message for a long time. He realized this wasn't just about helping Liam learn. It was about helping himself learn too, how to be a father, how to be present, how to love without fear. The next morning, he woke up early. Not for a meeting, but to have breakfast with his son. He helped Liam eat, listened as he tried to tell him about school, and promised he'd come to visit again soon. When Liam smiled, it wasn't shy this time, it was full and bright. The kind of smile that made everything else in the world fade away. And as Ethan left for work that day, he didn't feel like the man who had everything. He felt like someone who was finally learning what really mattered. Ethan started visiting Liam's school more often, and each time, he stayed a little longer. At first, The teachers and parents were surprised to see the billionaire sitting quietly at the back of a classroom filled with laughter, crayons, and messy art projects. But soon, it became normal. Ethan didn't say much during those visits. He just watched. He watched how Ms. Harper encouraged the children, how she made them feel confident even when they made mistakes, and how Liam's face lit up every time she praised him. He noticed how different Liam was in her class. At home, Liam was usually quiet, spending most of his time watching videos or sitting with his nurse. But in class, he smiled more, tried harder, and even interacted with other kids. He wasn't afraid of failing there because Ms. Harper never let failure feel like a bad thing. When Liam dropped something or struggled to speak, she would say, "That's okay. Let's try again." Her patience seemed endless. One day, Ethan came earlier than usual and saw the students practicing a small performance for the upcoming school event. Ms. Harper was sitting on the floor with them, helping Liam with his part. She was showing him how to use cue cards to read his line. When Liam managed to hold the card correctly and say a few words, the entire class clapped. Ms. Harper looked so proud. Like it was the biggest achievement in the world, Ethan felt his eyes sting again, just like before. He realized he had never celebrated something so simple with his son. Every time he had thought about Liam's future, it was in medical terms treatments, specialists, expensive care, but never about joy or small victories. Watching Ms. Harper celebrate those moments made him realize how much he had missed. After the class ended, Ms. Harper came over and smiled. "You're becoming a regular visitor, Mr. Cole," she teased. He smiled faintly. "I guess I'm starting to enjoy school again." "I can tell," she said. "Liam's so happy to see you here. He talks about you more these days." Ethan raised his eyebrows. "He does." She nodded. "Yesterday, when we asked everyone who their hero was, he pointed at a picture he drew of you." Ethan felt something heavy drop in his chest. He didn't know whether to smile or cry. For so long he had thought he was just a distant figure in his son's life. He never imagined Liam could think of him as a hero as the days went by. Ethan started spending more time with Liam outside school too. He began showing him small things from his world, simple things he had never thought Liam would enjoy. One evening, he took Liam to his office. He placed him beside his desk and showed him how computers and screens controlled his company's systems. Liam's eyes widened with fascination as bright numbers danced across the screen. "This is what your dad does all day," Ethan said with a small smile. "I make sure these machines work right." Liam tapped the desk and gave a thumbs up. For a boy who had trouble expressing himself, that one gesture meant everything. Over time, Ethan started to notice how much guilt he had been carrying. Every time Liam smiled at him, he felt a mix of warmth and regret. Warmth because he was finally connecting with his son, and regret because he had missed so many years of moments like this. He couldn't get them back, but he could try to make up for them now. One afternoon, Ethan arrived early at school and found Ms. Harper sitting alone, grading papers. She looked tired but peaceful. He knocked gently on the door. "Mind if I come in?" "Of course not," she said, smiling. "I didn't expect you this early. I had a meeting canceled," he said, taking a seat across from her. "Thought I'd use the time wisely." She smiled. "That's a nice change." They both laughed softly. Then Ethan grew serious. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure," she said. "How do you do it? How do you stay so patient, so kind? You make it look easy, but it can't be." Ms. Harper leaned back in her chair. "It's not easy," she admitted. "There are hard days. But I love what I do. Every child has something special inside them. Some just need a little more time for the world to see it. That's all." Her words were simple, but they hit deep. He thought about his life, how he had spent years chasing success, how he had measured everything in numbers, profits, and results. But here was someone measuring life in smiles and small steps. It made him question everything he thought he knew about value. He sighed softly. "I don't know if I've been a good father," he said quietly. Ms. Harper looked at him, her expression softening. "You're here now," she said. "That's what matters. Liam doesn't need a perfect dad. He just needs you." For a moment, Ethan didn't speak. No one had ever said something like that to him. It felt like a weight had been lifted off his shoulders. He had always thought being a father meant providing everything: money, security, care. But Ms. Harper was right. Liam didn't need luxury. He needed love. That evening, Ethan picked up Liam himself instead of sending the driver. When Liam saw him waiting outside the classroom, his face lit up with surprise. Ms. Harper waved goodbye to both of them, her smile full of quiet pride in the car. Ethan turned off his phone for the first time in years. He asked Liam about his day, and though the boy struggled to speak, his eyes sparkled as he tried to share everything. Ethan listened carefully, nodding, laughing, reacting, not pretending, really listening. When they got home, Ethan wheeled Liam into the garden. The air was cool, and the sky was glowing orange with sunset. Birds were chirping, and for once, Ethan wasn't thinking about business calls or deadlines. He was just there with his son. Liam reached out and pointed at the clouds. He made a soft sound that almost sounded like Dad. Ethan froze, then smiled so wide it hurt. "Yeah," he whispered, his voice shaky. "I'm here, buddy." That night, when Ethan tucked Liam into bed, he stayed until the boy fell asleep. He looked at him for a long time, realizing that this small, quiet child had done something no one else ever could. He had changed him. Later, Ethan sat in his study and looked around. The shelves were full of awards, trophies, and photos from business events. But they all felt meaningless now. The only picture that mattered was the one of Liam's crooked handwriting on that whiteboard, the one that said his name. He finally understood what Ms. Harper meant. Love didn't come from perfection or power. It came from showing up, even when you didn't know what to do. It came from trying. And for the first time in a long time, Ethan was finally trying as he turned off the lights and went to bed. Ethan felt a strange peace inside him, the kind of peace he hadn't known since the day Liam was born. Maybe he couldn't fix everything, but he could be there. And that, he realized, was enough. Just as things were starting to feel right between Ethan and Liam, life threw a challenge they weren't expecting. Ms. Harper, the teacher who had brought so much light into Liam's world, began to look tired. At first, Ethan thought it was just the normal exhaustion of a dedicated teacher. But soon he noticed the subtle signs. She moved slower than usual. Her cheerful smile sometimes faltered, and she kept sneezing or coughing quietly during class. One afternoon, after a particularly long day, she pulled Ethan aside. "Mr. Cole," she said softly, "I need to tell you something. I've been diagnosed with a serious illness. I'll need to take a leave from school to focus on treatment." Ethan felt as if the ground had dropped beneath him. He looked at her, shocked and silent. The room felt colder, emptier. Liam was in the classroom, oblivious for the moment, but Ethan's mind raced. Ms. Harper had been more than a teacher. She was a guide, a light, and now she was suddenly leaving. The next few days were difficult. Liam didn't understand fully why Ms. Harper wasn't in class. He asked every day if she would be back, and every day Ethan had to give him a vague answer, trying not to break down in front of him. Liam's usual bright smile dimmed, and Ethan felt a helplessness he had never known. He had money, influence, and resources, but he couldn't fix this. Determined not to let Liam regress, Ethan stepped up. He began spending hours at home, helping Liam with exercises and schoolwork. He read books aloud, using the same gentle tone Ms. Harper had modeled. He tried to guide Liam through small activities: painting, tracing letters, playing simple games. It was awkward at first. Ethan stumbled over his words, fumbled with Liam's adaptive tools, and sometimes felt frustrated. But he refused to give up. Each evening, he would video call Ms. Harper. She would smile, encourage Liam, and correct small mistakes gently. Even from a distance, her presence helped Liam feel safe and motivated. Watching these calls, Ethan noticed something important. His son responded not just to her, but also to Ethan's own efforts. Liam's confidence was slowly returning, and for the first time, Ethan felt he could make a difference himself. One morning, while Ethan was waiting outside the school gates, he overheard a few parents talking. "It's a shame she has to leave," one said. She's amazing, but her salary isn't high enough to cover medical costs. I hope she's okay. Ethan's heart sank. He realized Ms. Harper had been giving so much of herself, helping children like Liam while quietly struggling with her own challenges. It made him feel ashamed. He had always thought that his money was enough to fix problems. But here was someone giving everything, often without recognition or reward. He couldn't ignore it. That afternoon, he quietly began researching Ms. Harper's situation. He discovered that her illness was serious and treatment would be expensive. He knew he could help, but he also understood her pride and independence. He didn't want to impose, so he held back, wrestling with the question of how to make a difference without embarrassing her. Meanwhile, Liam struggled with her absence at school. Without Ms. Harper guiding him, he hesitated in class, became quieter during activities, and sometimes refused to participate. Ethan knew this was the real reason he needed to act, not just to support her. But to support his son, Ethan began spending even more time with Liam, taking him to the park, reading stories at home, and encouraging him in small victories just as Ms. Harper had taught him. He learned to adjust chairs, position books, and even correct Liam's hand movements during writing exercises. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. One afternoon, as they were practicing letters on a whiteboard, Liam looked up at him and whispered something that almost broke Ethan's heart. "I miss Ms. Harper," he said softly. Ethan swallowed hard. "I know, buddy," he said gently. "I miss her too. But she's still with us, in a way. We can do this together until she comes back." Liam nodded slowly, his face brightening just a little as he picked up his marker again. Ethan realized that even though he hadn't always been there, he could step in now. He could be a father who truly guided and cared for his son as the days turned into weeks. Ethan became a regular presence in Liam's life, not just as a father who provided, but as a father who taught, encouraged, and celebrated small achievements. He even started keeping a notebook, noting the progress Liam made each day. He began to understand the patience and consistency that Ms. Harper had used effortlessly at the same time. Ethan couldn't stop thinking about Ms. Harper. She had transformed Liam's life and, in doing so, had changed his own perspective. He wanted to help her, to honor her dedication, and to ensure she could recover without worrying about money. But he also wanted to respect her independence. He knew that whatever he did had to come from a place of sincere gratitude, not control. One evening, after putting Liam to bed, Ethan sat in his study and reflected. He thought about all the times he had been absent, all the years he had relied on money instead of love. He realized that the true value in life wasn't measured in wealth, but in presence, care, and action. Ms. Harper had shown him this truth through her unwavering dedication to his son. The following day, Ethan arranged for a discreet visit to the hospital. He brought flowers and a simple card. Thanking Ms. Harper for everything she had done for Liam, she was surprised but touched. Ethan spoke sincerely, explaining that he wanted to support her treatment, and that he was grateful for her patience, her guidance, and her kindness. Ms. Harper smiled, a little teary-eyed. "You've done more than you know," she said. "Your presence with Liam matters. I see how he's growing, not just learning, but happy." "That's the greatest gift," Ethan nodded, feeling the weight of her words. It was one thing to provide money. It was another to provide care, attention, and love. For the first time, he understood that wealth could never replace human connection. Over the next few weeks, Ethan continued to guide Liam at home. He worked with the tools and techniques Ms. Harper had taught him, celebrating each small victory. Liam began to smile more again, gaining confidence, and even attempting to speak new words. Through all of this, Ethan learned patience, empathy, and the power of showing up. He realized that being a father wasn't about grand gestures or expensive gifts. It was about being present, learning, and committing to your child's growth. No matter how small the steps, even though Ms. Harper was still absent, her influence remained in the classroom. In Liam's laughter and in Ethan's heart, he felt a deep sense of responsibility, not just to Liam, but to the woman who had shown him the meaning of true guidance. By the end of the part, Ethan was no longer the distant father he had been. He was learning to be someone his son could rely on. He had begun a transformation that went beyond wealth or status. And quietly, He also began planning a way to show Ms. Harper how much her dedication had changed their lives forever. This was a turning point not just for Liam, but for Ethan too. He was starting to understand that real impact came from love, care, and meaningful action, not just money or power. And he knew that the next steps he would take could change everything, not only for his son, but for the teacher who had touched their lives in ways no one could have imagined. Weeks had passed since Ms. Harper had been away from the school. Liam had slowly grown more confident under Ethan's guidance. But Ethan knew that her absence still left a gap in his son's life, a space that only she could fill. He often thought about her not just as Liam's teacher, but as the person who had taught him how to be a father. Her patience, her care, and her unwavering belief in children had changed their lives forever. One morning, the school announced a special assembly to celebrate the end of the semester. Parents, teachers, and students were all invited. Ethan decided to attend with Liam, even though he had no idea what was planned. The auditorium was buzzing with excitement. Children were holding colorful drawings, and parents whispered to each other, wondering what the event would be as Ethan and Liam entered. He noticed a few familiar faces, teachers and parents who had quietly supported Liam's journey. Then, he saw Ms. Harper sitting near the front. She looked healthier than she had weeks ago, though still pale and delicate. When she saw them, her eyes lit up, and Liam waved enthusiastically. Ethan felt a rush of emotion. He realized just how important Ms. Harper had been, and still was, in their lives. He took a seat quietly, watching the children perform songs, skits, and short speeches. When it was Liam's turn, he confidently wheeled himself to the front and shared a small story about his favorite part of school. He spoke slowly, carefully choosing each word, but he spoke clearly. The audience clapped, and Ethan felt tears prick his eyes. After the children's performances, the principal stepped onto the stage. "We have a very special announcement today," she said. Ethan leaned forward, curious. The principal continued, "There is someone in our school who has made a tremendous difference in the lives of our students. She has gone above and beyond, showing dedication, love, and inspiration every single day." The crowd looked toward Ms. Harper, and Ethan's heart swelled. She had always downplayed her own impact, but here she was, being recognized by the entire school community. The principal paused and smiled at Ethan. "Mr. Cole has something he would like to share." Feeling the eyes of everyone in the auditorium on him, he cleared his throat, feeling nervous in a way he hadn't in years. "Thank you," he began. "I'm not used to speaking in front of so many people, but I need to say this." He looked at Ms. Harper, his voice steady, but filled with emotion. "You have done something that no amount of money could ever do. You have changed my son's life and mine. Your patience, your kindness, and your belief in children like Liam have made all the difference. And for that, I am truly grateful." The audience was silent, listening intently. Ethan continued, "I want to do something that honors your dedication and ensures that other children, other teachers like you, can continue making a difference. I am creating a foundation in your Nama Foundation to support children with disabilities and the educators who dedicate their lives to them." Gasps and whispers filled the ROMM's. Harper covered her mouth in surprise, shaking her head. I can't accept that," she said softly. Ethan smiled gently. "You can, and you should. You have given so much, and now it's time the world gives back, so you can continue helping children like Liam. This isn't just about money. It's about recognizing the real heroes in our lives. And you are one of them." Ms. Harper's eyes glistened with tears. She looked at Liam, whose small hand rested on Ethan's arm, and then back at Ethan. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. "You don't have to say anything," Ethan replied. "Just keep doing what you do. That's enough." The principal came forward to congratulate both of them, and parents and teachers applauded loudly. Some were crying, others were cheering, but for Ethan, the applause was less important than the look on his son's face. Liam was smiling brighter than ever, proud of both his father and his teacher. After the assembly, Ethan and Liam walked Ms. Harper out of the auditorium. They talked quietly, laughing at small jokes and sharing smiles. Ethan realized that for the first time, he wasn't just a father who provided. He was a father who participated. He had guided his son, celebrated victories, and now witnessed the power of gratitude and recognition. On the way home, Ethan thought about everything that had happened over the past few months. He had gone from a man who thought money could solve every problem to a father who understood the importance of presence, care, and human connection. Ms. Harper had shown him that true change comes from love, patience, and belief in others. That night, Ethan tucked Liam into bed and stayed until he was asleep. He watched his son breathe calmly, a small smile on his face. It was the kind of peace Ethan had never known before. For the first time, he didn't feel the need to control everything or be perfect. He just felt the warmth of being a parent who truly cared. The foundation he had, started in Miss Harper's name, quickly began to take shape. Scholarships for children with disabilities, grants for teachers, programs to provide resources to underfunded schools were soon launched. But the most important thing Ethan realized wasn't the money, it was the recognition of dedication and love. The acknowledgement that some people can change lives in ways no wealth ever could. In the following weeks, Ethan continued to be an active father. He took Liam to school, helped him with homework, and even joined him in creative projects at home. They painted, read, and laughed together, building a bond that had been missing for years. And each time, Ms. Harper visited, the three of them shared stories, celebrated small victories, and watched Liam grow more confident and joyful. Ethan learned that life's true value isn't measured in money or success, but in relationships, effort, and care. He had spent years chasing achievements, but the lessons he learned from Ms. Harper and the time he spent with Liam were far more meaningful. The story ended with Ethan realizing that while money could provide comfort, education, and opportunities, it was love, guidance, and presence that truly shaped a child's life. Ms. Harper's dedication had sparked this transformation, but Ethan's decision to step up had solidified it. And so, in the quiet moments after the assembly, as he watched Liam sleep and thought about the future, Ethan felt something he had never felt before: fulfillment. Not from wealth, not from fame, not from accolades, but from knowing he had become the father his son deserved, and that together with Ms. Harper, they had created a brighter, kinder world for children who needed someone to believe in them. It was a moment that would remain with Ethan forever, a decision that shocked everyone, but changed everything.